Imagine a moment when the whole team holds their breath and Parker Schnabel says just one word. We did it. But have they really achieved what could only be imagined? What has happened this time in the new season of Gold Rush can go down in history. Parker has touched a figure that everyone thought was impossible, the gold target of 40 million. But this is not just a number. There is blood, sweat, and twists behind it that are beyond your imagination. When the digging began, Parker himself was not sure that this dream would come true. The machines broke down on the way, the team scattered, the weather failed, and on top of that, there was the pressure of this multi-million-dollar gamble. But as the season progressed, the secrets deepened along with the depth of the digging. A vein was found that no one had seen before. And when Parker got his final weight weighed, everyone was stunned. But wait. This isn't just a money-making story. It's about the perseverance of one man who said, "I won't stop until I make history." If you want to know how Parker made history, and the real story behind his victory, then make sure to watch the full video. And if you love such treasured true but movie-like stories, subscribe to the channel now because the next discovery could be even more epic. When Parker Schnabel started this season, he had only one thing on his mind: to extract more than 5,000 ounces of gold. It sounds easy, but in reality, it was a target that hardly anyone had achieved till now. This was not just a number. It was a gamble of Parker's entire life, and this time he was not out to play a game, but to make history. Parker chose a place named Dominion Creek for his excavation. Now, the question was, such a large land, so far away, and so much risk. What was so special about this place? Actually, Dominion Creek is an old area where excavation had been done earlier also. But Parker felt something different here from his geosurvey and ground tests. He felt that something deep and valuable was hidden under the ground here. A hidden vein which no one had touched till date. But digging at such a place was not a child's play. Parker invested millions of rupees. A budget of about $15 million was fixed. More than 25 people were added to the team. Drivers, machine operators, testing experts, and mechanics. Dozens of machines were brought in. Huge excavators, wash plants, trommels, bulldozers, and a fleet of heavy-duty trucks. Everything seemed to be going according to plan. But as soon as the digging began, trouble came knocking at the door. In the first weeks, the weather failed. Dominion Creek rained continuously, so much so that the entire area turned into mud. Machines got stuck where they were. In some places, digging became impossible. And when the weather improved a little, the machines gave up. The trommel, the machine that separates dirt and gold, suddenly stopped working. Parker's most trusted wash plant was repeatedly overloaded. While one machine was being fixed, another would stop working. Hours of the day were spent repairing machines and production reached close to zero. The tension in the team grew. People started getting tired. They started getting nervous. Parker's face was getting stern day by day. He was not the same Parker who used to joke or motivate the team. He had now become a person who wanted results every minute. "We have invested so much money and we don't see gold," Parker said angrily in one scene. One night he called the whole team to a meeting and said clearly, either we change everything or everything will be over. But maybe this is Parker's way. When the odds are against him, he becomes more focused. Parker knew that these were initial problems. But if he could not overcome them, then neither would he get gold, nor would history be made. Several weeks had passed. The team was demoralized by rain, mud, and machine malfunctions. Parker's face was now always serious. The team began to feel that this time the gamble may have backfired. But then a spark was seen. The two people doing soil testing on the site were walking around in the mud all day collecting soil samples. In the evening, when these samples began to be tested in the lab, a graph suddenly shot up on the computer screen. The amount of trace gold was suddenly high. Everyone was shocked. This was no small data. There were real traces of gold in the soil. Parker was immediately called. He came to the lab, saw the graph, and said just one line: "There is something down here." After that, The entire focus of the team changed. Now they marked the place from where the promising samples were found. Parker started operating his excavator himself as if he was talking to the ground. Slowly the digging progressed and the layers of soil started to be removed. At first it was just wet soil. Then pebbles, and then a very different sound came. Parker stopped digging. He looked down and saw an old wooden beam. It was no ordinary piece of wood. It was cut in the proper shape and laid deep. It looked as if someone had built a structure there a long time ago. Questions arose. Are we digging here for the first time? Or had someone else discovered something in this place before us? For the first time, a different smile came on Parker's face. A mysterious and excited smile. The team continued digging at that place. As more soil was removed, the shape of the wooden structure became clearer. In some parts, the beams were placed one above the other, as if it was part of an old shaft or entry tunnel. Parker said softly, "If this is really an old excavation, then it means that someone already knew that there is something here." Now, it was not just about gold. It had become a mystery. The team named that place Zone X, and they were now fully focused on it. What was found in this Zone X in the next few days was going to shake Parker's entire career. The excavation in Zone X had now reached a depth. Wooden beams, old paths built deep down, and a strange smell were found below. Parker was now beginning to believe that he was not just removing soil. He was uncovering history. And then suddenly a miracle happened. During the excavation, a pocket was found from where high-concentration gold started coming out. This was the moment everyone had been waiting for weeks. The team's eyes lit up again. Parker himself kept watch in the sill box. Soil and stones were sorted, and what came out of it was enough to blow anyone's mind. More than 200 ounces of gold came out in just 1 week. Now you must be thinking $200 means how much? So it simply means that in just 7 days Parker extracted gold worth about $2.5 million. Parker stood quietly. His eyes were fixed on that gold. Then he said, "Now things are working out. This is the same vein we were looking for." A new energy came into the team. Those who used to sit down in exhaustion earlier were now engaged in digging even after the shift without speaking. Parker was no longer strict. Rather, he was leading the team shoulder to shoulder. But when everything starts going well, then there is a new twist in the story. And this time, the twist was such that no one had expected it. One day, while digging, a rusty metal object came out of the bucket of an excavator. Initially, everyone thought that it might be an old container or a broken part of a machine. But when it was cleaned, everyone was stunned. It was a complete trommel machine. A very old, heavy trommel that looked about 30-40 years old. Parker came there and remained silent for some time after looking at that machine. Then he said, "This seems to be someone else's digging." That is, it was clear someone had dug here before this too. But this information was nowhere in the records. No documents, no government register. Then the question arose, who left this machine here and why? The team opened the machine slowly. Inside there were some old rusted parts, some broken gears, and some small black bags. These bags did not contain gold, but pieces of old maps, some faded photographs, and pages of a torn notebook. There was something handwritten on that notebook which was difficult to read, but one line was clearly visible in it. "We went too deep. It's not just gold down there." Now Parker's excavation was no longer just mining. Now it had become a discovery that would unravel the layers of a mystery. The old trommel machine and the pieces of the map found in it had further fueled Parker's curiosity. Now he was convinced that there was not just gold, but a big secret hidden beneath the ground of Dominion Creek. Parker immediately called the geologists and GPS experts of his team. They started new drilling around the trommel machine site and took soil samples. These samples were tested in the mobile lab, and the data that came out this time echoed throughout the camp. A straight vein, that is a thin line of gold, was seen going from south to north inside the entire ground, and this vein was passing through the trommel site. Parker's eyes shone again. He himself took the GPS and the diagram in his hand and stood in the front. He climbed into the excavator and said to the team, "We are about to catch something big. and this vein will take us there. Parker started digging. The layers of soil kept getting removed and the color of the rocks below started changing. Small particles of gold started shining on the rocks. The team was filled with enthusiasm again. Now Parker took a new decision. Blasting to reach the bottom of that vein. He decided that the rocks would be blown up with dynamite so that the depth could be reached directly. After 2 days of preparation, blasting began. After every blast, dust and smoke would fly. But as soon as the soil and rocks were removed, the shine of gold would come from below. On the very first day of digging, when slewing was done, that is, gold was separated from the soil. What came out of the machine was no less than a jackpot. About 1900 ounces of gold in a single day. The next day, when the next blast took place and processing took place in the slew box, that day the team made history. Gold worth about $4 million came out in just 2 days. Parker was standing at his place holding a hat in his hand, and there was a different shine in his eyes. He smiled and said, "Now, this is not just a season. This is going to be the biggest victory of my life." The team members were dancing with joy. Some were shaking hands. Some were hugging the machine. People could see the victory of hard work, and not just the shine of gold in their eyes. Preparations were made to weigh the gold. All the gold of that day was kept in different trays and every ounce was counted. When the numbers came on the screen of the weighing machine, there was silence in the entire camp. Because in 2 days, a total of 2,300 ounces of gold had been extracted, whose market value was directly above $4 million. Parker gathered the team once again and said, "What we had dreamed of is now in front of us, but the journey is not over yet." Now Parker had only one goal in front of him, to touch the figure of $40 million. But the biggest question that was arising: will this vein go further? Is there something bigger hidden below? Parker knew he had just opened the door. The real game had just begun. Now the moment had come for which Parker and his team had waited the whole season. Hundreds of hours of hard work, rain, mud, machines sitting, then blasting, and now the final weigh-in. This was the time when Parker was going to know whether the biggest gamble of his life was successful or not. The entire camp was quiet. Gold was kept in large containers, and every piece was a part of the story that Parker had written with blood and sweat. The weighing machines were ready. The cameras were on. Parker's face looked a little tight. No smile, no enthusiasm. Just a man lost in deep thoughts. He lowered his head, took a deep breath, and said slowly, "If this fails, then I may never be able to take such a big step again." The first tray was placed. The machine showed the weight. 275 ounces. Then the second, then the third. Every time the numbers came on the screen, the team's breath stopped. People were looking at the machine without blinking. Gold kept coming out of each tray, and Parker's eyes were fixed only on the total number. He had taken out a small diary in which he had written at the beginning of the season, "Target 5,000 ounces, approx value $40 million. And when the last tray was weighed, everyone was stunned to see the final figure shown on the machine screen. Total weight 5,20, and according to today's market rate, its value was $40.2 million. The whole camp remained silent for a moment. Then there was a sound of applause and screams simultaneously. Some were hugging Parker, some were dancing. The cameras were rolling, but Parker was standing quietly at the same place as if time had stopped. He had the same diary in his hand. He looked at it and just laughed a little. Then he stood in front, gathered everyone, and for the first time in the season, his voice was hoarse. He said, "This is not just gold. This is the biggest victory of my life." He stopped and looked towards the sky and said, "Papa, Dada, this is for you. You taught me to dream big in life and not be afraid to make them come true." There were tears in Parker's eyes, but those tears were not of fatigue or pain. They were tears of pride. Then he looked at his team and said, "If my team was not with me, this would not have been possible. This victory is not mine. It is of all of us." Parker called every person who dug there, operated the machine, cooked food, drove the truck, everyone by name. And this was the Parker whom the world called selfish, tough and lonely. But today he was speaking like a leader. He looked at the camera and said, maybe you are only seeing gold, but I am seeing my dreams coming true here. After that, there was a small celebration. No cake, no party, just standing in the mud with a small team and a sparkle in Parker's eyes. And then Parker said another line which was probably a hint of the next story. The beginning was here. The real story will begin now. Weeks of hard work, unseasonal rains, machine malfunctions, anger, fatigue, team breakdowns. Then the first ray of hope, the glitter of gold, and finding heavy gold after blasting. All this was on one side. And what was about to happen now was on the other side. Now it was time for the final weighing. Meaning Parker and his team were now going to know how many ounces of gold they had finally extracted and what its market value was. For Parker, it was not just the weight. It was the price of his hard work, his dream, his everything. That day was completely different. Everyone in the camp was quiet. No jokes, no laughter. Everyone's faces were serious. Parker himself was very calm, but nervousness was clearly visible in his eyes. The gold was cleaned and placed in different trays. Each tray was heavy, shining, but Parker's eyes were on only one thing, the total number that would appear on the screen. As soon as the first tray was placed on the machine, the weight came. 850. The team breathed a slight sigh of relief. Second tray, 1020. Then the third, 925. Tray after tray, Parker just stood there counting the numbers without blinking. The numbers kept getting updated on the board in the command room. Parker pulled out a small register from his pocket in which he had written a line before the season started. Target, 5,000. Goal, $40 million. By now, the total weight had crossed 4,300. There were just a few more trays left. Everyone's heart was racing. One by one, the last trays were weighed. And when finally the total figure came on the screen, everyone's eyes remained wide open. Total weight 5,220. Estimated market value, $40.2 million. Parker's eyes glistened for a moment, but he said nothing. People in the team were shouting. Some were punching the air. Some were hugging each other, but Parker stood there as if his soul was feeling that moment completely. After a few seconds, Parker bowed his head, closed his eyes, and took a deep breath. Then he looked at the camera and said, "This is not just gold. This is the victory of my life." Parker's voice was a little hoarse. He took off his hat and looked towards the sky. Then he said, "Papa Dada, this is for you. You both taught me how to stand when everything is falling. You taught me not to be afraid to dream. And today, that dream has come true." Parker missed his father a lot. He was the one who taught Parker to dig for the first time. He is no longer in this world, but every step of his name. Then Parker looked at his entire team. Those faces who woke up with him every morning, stood firm in every storm, and overcame every failure. Parker called everyone in a line, took each one's name, and said, "If you guys were not there, I would not have been able to do anything. This victory is not mine. It is for all of us." Everyone's eyes were filled with tears. Some were holding hands. Some were just bowing their heads and thanking Parker. And Parker said the same thing to everyone. "We have made history and this is just the beginning." After that, there was no noise. No big celebration, just standing in the mud in slightly dirty clothes with a quiet smile and a heavy relief in the chest. Everyone patted each other's back. This victory was worth crows, but more than that, it was of Parker's heart. Parker's victory this season was not just a big one for his team, but a shock for the entire gold mining industry. When gold worth $40.2 million was found in Dominion Creek, not only Gold Rush fans, but geologists, industrial experts, and old mining mafias from around the world were alarmed. Interview footage shown on TV in which a retired miner from Alaska says, "I have never seen a vein like this in my entire career." Parker not only caught the vein but also exploited it completely. That's pure mining genius. Another professional geologist who was associated with a Canadian university wrote in his report, "Dominion Creek was previously underestimated, but Parker Schnabel's drilling and analysis have completely changed the geological value of this place. Now it will be counted in a premium range. The meaning was clear. Where earlier people considered this area a low-yield zone, now companies are lining up after Parker's digging. The value of the land on Dominion Creek has now increased by millions of dollars and Parker is the owner of the land. But the real question was, will Parker stop now? Is his mission accomplished? The answer was worth listening to. In an interview after the season ended, Parker was asked, "Now that you have extracted $40 million in gold, are you satisfied?" Parker smiled and said, "Satisfied? Not yet. Now I want to go deeper. The vein we have found, I am sure it extends further down. We have just caught the tip of it." He also said that some parts of Dominion Creek are still untouched. Sample reports from there are coming positive again, meaning the next season is probably going to be even bigger. Parker's team has already started working on new plans, deeper core drilling, new wash plant setup, and an AI-backed soil analysis system which can provide real-time sample data. Parker finally said, "If you think I have taken out my biggest gold, then you may be wrong. The real treasure is probably still hidden inside the ground." Now that Parker Schnabel has struck $40 million in gold, the world is talking about his success. Some are calling it the greatest mining moment of the gold rush, and some are saying Parker will stop now. But the gleam in Parker's eye says something else. On the last day of the season, Parker stands in front of the camera and points to an old dusty map sheet. The map has some cross marks on it and Parker's finger rests on a very deep untouched spot. He looks at the camera and says, "We have just opened the door. The real game begins now." The vein they have dug so far is just the tip of the iceberg, but new data suggests there is another secret network beneath Dominion Creek. Perhaps an ancient sealed tunnel or structure. This time we found a vein. Next time maybe we will find a vault, Parker said. And that's what's making everyone think, has Parker really found a forgotten treasure under Dominion Creek? Is that vein connected to an old lost mine? Or is there something else that could be even more surprising than gold? The last scene of the season ends with Parker's dialogue. "If you think this was my biggest discovery, wait. The next revelation will change your mind." Now you must be wondering what will happen next. Will Parker dig again? Will the next season be even more explosive? So friends, the answer is yes, and you can't miss it. If you like this amazing journey,